Now, the Office of the Auditor General has faulted the State Department for Crop Development and Agriculture Research for hiring helicopters for the containment of the locust in the country at a cost of 252 million shillings. The Auditor General says the procurement of the helicopters was irregular as the tendering laws were not adhered to. Evaluation and recommendation for the awards of the tenders were not evaluated as well. Mwangi Maina tells us more.
In an audit report before the National Assembly for the year ended June 2020, the Auditor General has faulted the State Department for Crop Development and Agricultural Research for hiring helicopters irregularly. In the first contract, the State Department hired helicopters for provision of locust air surveillance in Isiolo, Marsabit, Nakuru, Eldoret and Kerio Valley at a cost of 103 million Kenya shillings. The Auditor General says there was no evaluation for the tender before it was awarded. Of the two companies, the Auditor General says one tenderer was not licensed to operate an aircraft and used the registration of another firm. On the other hand, the other tenderer did not have a valid operator certificate authorizing it to undertake commercial air transport operations. In the second contract, the State Department spent 149 million Kenya shillings for the hiring of helicopter services from two firms appointed through direct procurement. The Auditor General has flagged this expenditure as records for the tendering process were not availed for audit and there was no disclosure of the negotiations. The Auditor General further says, and I quote, "The contract signed by the Accounting Officer, State Department for Crop Development and the two firms were not availed for audit. As a result, the existence of the contracts could not be confirmed." End of quote. The auditor says there are no records on the acquisition for the use of the helicopters and manifests were not availed to indicate the persons ferried and flight routes taken. Arising from the anomalies, the Auditor General says, and I quote, "It is not possible to confirm that value for money was attained on the expenditure totaling 149,680,800 Kenya shillings incurred on hire of the helicopter services from the two firms." End of quote. The money used on this expenditure was donated by the World Bank. Earlier this year, the government spokesperson had announced that the government had deployed 10 helicopters in the fight against locusts, while 2 other copters were on standby and had been donated by the Kenya Defence Forces and the Food and Agriculture Organization FAO to aid in the fight.
We have so far been able to deploy 10 aircraft, out of which 6 are surveillance helicopters and 4 spray fixed-wing aircraft. We have got 2 spray aircraft, one from FAO, that is Food and Agriculture Organization, and one from KDF. Now, the one from FAO is currently on standby at Wilson Airport, and the one for KDF is at Eastleigh Air Base, ready for deployment in case of any upsurge of infestation.
The Auditor General also faulted the expenditure of 609 million shillings on the purchase of chemicals to fight locust invasion in the country. Upon inspection, the auditor Nancy Gadhongo says the chemicals were still lying in Kabete stores and no explanation was given on the utilization of the chemicals, yet they were an emergency procurement. Gadhongo warned the chemicals could expire before their use, leading to loss of taxpayers' money. Also faulted was another procurement of pesticides worth 400 million Kenya shillings. The Auditor General says the company awarded the tender was not listed as a supplier in the project and the estimated value of goods was more than the maximum value of 1 million for requests of quotations. The procurement was found to be contrary to the World Bank procurement guidelines and the Public Procurement and Assets Disposal Act, which only allows the use of requests for quotations for procuring limited quantities of readily available off-the-shelf goods and commodities. Mwangi Maina, TV47, Nairobi.
Now, the Kenyan government has until Wednesday midnight to reveal the names of owners of companies